It's looking extremely likely, if not inevitable, that this will be a very significant legal challenge, perhaps up to and including the Supreme Court.
And every Tuesday we head to the US to find out what's happening in Washington. And Lara Spirit is our woman cartwheeling through the corridors of power. She joins me now. Hello, Lara.
Good morning, Hugo.
Good afternoon from here. Good morning to you.
Sorry.
Look, no, it's all right. And it's tricky. We do appreciate you getting up, but no one ever says they appreciate me staying up, even though it's lunchtime. President Trump has taken the opportunity to wax lyrical about the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un in the middle of a meeting with South Korea's leader Lee Jae-myung. Here's Trump speaking in the Oval Office.
I have a great relationship with Kim Jong-un. I hope it stays that way. I think it will. I have a very good relationship. I understand him. I spent a lot of free time with him, talking about things that we probably aren't supposed to talk about. And, I get along with him really well. I think he has a country of great potential.
Well, the American president also took to Truth Social in the hours before the meeting, asking what is going on in South Korea seems like a purge or a revolution. Lara, diplomacy, eh?
Yeah, well, this was one of those meetings that we were sort of primed to think might be a blockbuster dressing down of another world leader in the Oval Office. Actually, in the end, proved quite a merry affair. Lee was extremely flattering of Trump, which I think probably helped, saying the White House was bright and beautiful, saying that he was a wonderful peacemaker. And in the end, that sort of slightly Delphic suggestion from Trump on Truth Social that there were serious problems with South Korea that would be addressed in that coming meeting just didn't materialize. So we didn't necessarily know what Trump was talking about with that. He then was asked before the meeting, and he said he'd heard that churches were being raided in South Korea. He even heard that a US military base had been raided. And then when he was pressed on that in the meeting, he said, I'm sure it's a misunderstanding and we'll talk about it later. So in the end, there wasn't actually a huge amount of conflict between the two leaders, even when there are quite big differences between them on quite important questions of trade and security. So particularly around that broad stroke trade agreement that has been reached on lowering tariffs to South Korea, and also I think more importantly on this question of whether or not troops need to be reorientated from South Korea away from deterring North Korea and towards what the US thinks is a very important threat, which is China. Of course, Lee, the leader of South Korea, the new leader of South Korea, keen to balance relationships and make sure that they don't completely ostracize China, of course, a neighbor and vital trading partner. So there was a lot that could have gone wrong yesterday, and in the end it didn't.
I mean, it doesn't make a huge amount of news over here, but has Donald Trump complained about the support that America gives to South Korea's military in the way that he complains about the support that America gives to so many militaries around the world?
Yeah, so he does want South Korea to pay their way more, you would think, because yesterday he was asked about this question, whether or not they would consider removing troops or reorientating them, and he didn't want to get into it, I think because he was quite keen on that meeting in the end being a friendly affair. But he did say that President Biden had allowed South Korea to not pay their way in the way that he had previously in his first term. And so without explicitly saying that they would be looking at that, this is certainly something that people would expect in the kind of finer print of those talks and negotiations between the two delegations over the coming weeks.
And what response has there been to Trump's warm comments from Kim Jong-un himself? Has he said anything yet? Are they going on a barge holiday together? What's happening?
We don't know about the barge holiday, We obviously know that the two of them met twice in Trump's first term. Trump was really emphatic about how positive he felt about that relationship yesterday, of course, while sat next to Lee there. I mean, Lee clearly was trying to make noises to the effect of wanting to sound like he wanted peace, and that this was one of the great lasting obstacles to that in the world that Trump had not yet necessarily figured out. But Trump said they had a really great relationship. He kind of mused about that press conference. He said, pointing out that it's not a particularly normal affair for Kim Jong-un to hold press conferences, and that it didn't last very from his respect. So Trump enjoyed that discussion, and you can imagine that he will want to be seen having a kind of conference or a meeting of some kind. But clearly, with particularly Ukraine high on the agenda still, this isn't something that you would say the Trump administration is thinking more about than in other conflicts.
Look, domestically in the US, Donald Trump, he's ordered the immediate removal of Lisa Cook, a governor at America's Federal Reserve. He claims she falsified mortgage documents for a preferential interest rate, whereas she says it's all political and she won't resign. What's going on here, Lara? Is this a story of Trump's animosity, or is this a story of him holding a sort of a dodgy official to account? Which way is this looking?
This is a massive story and something that we're going to see a lot more about today because Lisa Cook last night, her lawyers at least, pushing back extremely hard on the idea that Trump, has the authority to fire her from the board of governors. If you are trying to fire someone from the Fed, you need something which in legal speak is called due cause. And there are plenty of legal experts suggesting that Trump might not have that in this instance because he's claiming that she may have used falsified records to, as you say, obtain favourable terms on a mortgage. But she hasn't been charged, let alone sentenced in this particular regard. And it comes, of course, amid a very long-running campaign from Trump to remake the Fed in his favour, as well as, of course, sharply criticising some of its members, most notably Jerome Powell, who's the chair, for keeping, in his view, interest rates too high. So there is important political context here. Today will be very interesting because whether or not the Fed, for example, treats Lisa Cook as fired will be a very important thing to watch. Unlike with some previous officials where Trump has moved to fire them, this has been a completely emphatic rejection of that from the official themselves. And it's looking extremely likely, if not inevitable, that this will be a very significant legal challenge, perhaps up to and including the Supreme Court, which, although it has previously seemed to err on the side of supporting Trump's attempts to remove government officials, may well look upon the Fed as a completely different being entirely. And it seems legally that there are reasons to suggest that might be the case. So we still don't really know. It's a pretty extraordinary move. And we'll have to see what happens today.
What's the root of his animosity against the Federal Reserve? Because presumably it's more than just the existence of officials who he's not in command of.
Well, I mean, chiefly it's for keeping interest rates, in his view, too high. And that's something that he's been very open about, particularly in his pretty strident criticism of Jerome Powell, the chair. We hear about that on a very, very regular basis from Trump here in Washington. Of course, the economy is something that the administration is likely to be more sensitive about. When you look at the opinion polls and statistics about how people think voters are doing, they tend to be much more positive about, say, the immigration and deportation policies of the Trump administration than perhaps the performance on the economy so far. And of course, Trump, in the middle of and always in this kind of big campaign around tariffs, is wanting to make sure that voters feel like they're feeling better off, is obviously keenly aware of how important that is to a politician's fate and fortune. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing this pressure, at least, and this criticism perhaps of Powell.
Finally, Lara, the latest appearance of a bruise on Donald Trump's right hand has aroused further speculation about the 79-year-old president's health. That mark was visible during meetings yesterday. It's been seen several times during the past few months. It's occasionally even been covered up with makeup, albeit not very well. What is the concern here? What is the speculation here? What's the White House said about it?
Well, the speculation online is this idea that perhaps there are blood tests that he's having, blood draws, and the suggestion being, perhaps he's not in as fine health as some people say. Trump's doctor and the White House have been pretty firm in rejecting all of this. They've said he's in excellent health. They've said that the hand bruises are a result of handshaking very, very frequently, and few would deny that he's handshaking a lot, and also the intake of aspirin. They said this is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. His doctor, that's Sean Barbella, has said. He said this is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. So they're basically saying there's nothing wrong and there's nothing to see here.
I mean, has this led to, because there were obviously frequent concerns about Joe Biden's health. Seem to have had some grounds there. There have also been concerns about Donald Trump's health before as well. Are there calls that the president's health, whoever the president is, should come under more scrutiny, be made more public and so on?
I mean, I think during the final days of the Biden candidacy and presidency, that was definitely high on the agenda. I think with regard to Trump, people don't see visible signs of him, deteriorating or being not in a position necessarily to do his job on account of his health. Actually, when you look at Trump's agenda, I mean, when I look at the schedule of what Trump actually has on, as journalists here in Washington do every day, it is astonishing how much he does and how much he's able to do and the energy that he has. So I think for that reason, this is certainly not as high on the political agenda as it was under Biden.
Good point. Well made. Thank you very much indeed. That is the Times' Washington correspondent, Lara Spirit. Lovely to speak to you as always, Lara.